The Black Phone is a 2021 American horror thriller movie that follows a story of a young boy and a masked killer. The movie goes back to 1978 in North Denver, where a pair of siblings Finney and Gwen Blake live with their abusive and alcoholic father. Finney always wanted to be a part of NASA, and he would always have a small spaceship statue-like pen with him which would never part from him. One of Finney's friends, Bruce, was abducted by a child abductor famously known as the Grabber. Finney lived his life in fear, be it in school or at home. This is because he was frequently bullied, harassed, and beaten, but his friend named Robin always had his back and would save him from the bullies. Robin was considered the strongest boy in school due to his strength and confidence. A story about the Grabber flows in school, wherein any child who calls out his name would be taken away by the Grabber. Finney was intimidated and would never call the Grabber by his name, whereas his sister Gwen was fearless and would confidently chant the Grabber's name. During a lecture, Gwen was called to the principal's office, where she was met with detectives Wright and Miller. While interrogating Gwen, the detectives asked her about the dream she narrated to Bruce's sister Amy. Gwen narrated saying she saw a weird dream wherein she saw a man with black balloons take him in a van. The detectives agreed to the fact that they had found balloons on the crime scene, but it was not disclosed to anyone. Gwen tried to justify, saying it was just a dream, but the detectives struggled to believe anything and everything Gwen said. There, we learn that Gwen is a psychic, just like her late mother, and had the psychic powers which helped her dream about Bruce's kidnappings. Finney woke up a furious father and a crying sister. His father was beating her up because he was asked questions about Bruce's kidnappings and the prompt knowledge Gwen had regarding the same. Finney was angry and furious at his father, but felt helpless and weak and consoled Gwen instead. On the other hand, the Grabber was seen abducting Robin. Unaware of it, the siblings were watching TV, wherein they learned from their father that Finney's friend was abducted. Hearing about this, Finney locked himself in the room, and meanwhile, the police were investigating the crime scene. In order to help Finney find Robin, Gwen prays to God to help him show a direction through dreams that would give out Robin's location. Morning came and the police knocked on Blake's house door in order to talk to Gwen and find something that could help them with the case. The day continued with Finney being bullied and beaten up, and Gwen trying to save him but gets beaten too. Every Friday, Gwen stays at her friend Susie's house, meaning Finney would have to walk back home alone. That day too, he was walking back home alone when he saw a man drop his grocery bag. Him being a good boy decided to help the man. While helping, the man said he was a magician, and when he was about to show Finney his trick, he saw black balloons inside the van. Curiosity killed the cat, which stands true, as Finney was abducted when he walked towards the van to check the balloons, but not before tracking his hand with his spaceship statue-like pen. An unconscious Finney woke up only to realize he was abducted into a creepy-looking room with the abductor, also known as the Grabber. As the Grabber was talking, he heard the phone ring, which induced him to leave the room. Realizing Finney was alone and locked, he caught onto his pointed spaceship statue-like pen and started to look around for a way to escape into the soundproof room. There, he saw a disconnected black rotary phone on the wall. Meanwhile, unaware, Gwen got a phone call from his dad asking about Finney's whereabouts. She leaves the house in a rush, shocked to the core. There, she finds detectives investigating. She again goes back to her room to say a prayer, hoping for a miracle. Finney heard the rotary phone ring, and when he picked it up, he heard the Grabber inform him about it not working. Finney tries to reason with the Grabber, hoping he would let him leave, but to no avail. He calls him out, demanding answers about his friends Bruce and Robin's death, but is received with a negative answer. He leaves the room, leaving a scared Finney to his thoughts. He starts to scream for help when he sees a passage through a window on the wall. At that moment, he heard the phone ring again. A ray of hope spreads through his body, and he answers the call but doesn't get any response from the other end. Later that night, he heard the phone ring again. He picked up the phone to answer and called for help. There, he heard a male voice call his name out. Aghast, he cuts the call and backs away. Immediately, he gets another call. When he picks up, the voice starts to talk to him. Finney asks for his name, but the voice that he later learns is Bruce's says it was the first thing he forgot after he was dead. He tells Finney about the loose tile he could remove to dig a tunnel and escape, and cuts the call, without waiting for any questions. After every call from the voices, a flashback of the boys was shown. Gwen woke up, startled. She saw a dream wherein Finney was calling for help near a door. To find him, Gwen got onto her cycle and went through every house door in hope of finding her brother. On the other hand, Finney got to work by digging a tunnel to escape. He cleverly would flush all the clay in the bathroom. One morning, the Grabber came downstairs to serve breakfast for Finney, and while exiting, forgot to lock the door. Thinking it was a mistake on his part and a chance to escape, he was about to open the door, but the phone rang. He picked up the phone, and the voice warned him to not go upstairs as it was a trap. The voice, whom he then realizes is Billy, warns him that the Grabber was waiting upstairs with a belt in his hand for him to be silly enough to think he could escape. It was just a reason given to him to punish. Finney believes the fact when he himself walks upstairs to see the Grabber waiting for him and sneakily returns back into the room. After some time, the phone rings, and it was Billy's voice again, instructing him to use the cord Billy found and hid near the wall and used to get out via the window. His efforts were a success as he broke the bars on the window. Gwen saw the grabber abduct Billy in her dreams and decided to tell her father about the happening. The detectives, while investigating the case, met a peculiar man named Max who lived with his brother, was too involved in the case of the missing children, and had all the necessary information about them. He believed he was a part of the case and that he and the detectives would catch the culprit. Thinking he was a crackhead, the detectives left, unaware of the fact that he was the culprit that was behind the abductions. Max feels betrayed because Finney lied about his name. In anger, he left the door unlocked again. Thinking it was not a trap this time, he was about to leave but was stopped by the ringing of the phone. Thinking it was Billy or Bruce, he started to talk but was met with no response. Upstairs, Max fell asleep waiting for Finney to go upstairs, and downstairs, Finney waited for the phone call to know his next step. His spaceship statue-like pen had a torch that helped him see things clearly in the dark room. There, he saw a boy's bloodied body flying in the air and pointing towards the rotary phone. Thinking of it as a sign, Finney walks toward it and picks up the phone. There, Griffin's voice informs him that the grabber is actually Max's brother. He also shares the combination of his bike's lock with Finney that was carved on the wall, and lets him know that the grabber is asleep upstairs. Finney was confused as the grabber had not hurt since the time he was brought here. He learned from Griffin that he hadn't played the naughty boy game with the grabber, as the phone calls would save him, which kept him alive and safe till now. Adding to it that the grabber would not be able to move on to the next part if he did not hurt Finney. Slowly, taking feather-like steps, he reaches upstairs and successfully unlocks the door, but the grabber's dog starts to bark, which awakens him. Finney flees down the streets and tries his best to call for help and escape but is recaptured. Gwen woke up grumpily in the morning and was annoyed at Jesus because of the lack of any dreams last night. Finney was devastated to be back in the room when he heard the phone ring. This time, it was Vance, one of Finney's bullies from whom he felt intimidated and scared. He cuts the call before ambiguously saying today was the day. Gwen, with her psychic abilities, could see Vance and could hear the conversations between him and Finney that they just had. Therein, he pointed out the house of the grabber where all nightmares live. The house number was 7741, the house where Finney was abducted. Getting another call from Vance, Finney learns of the storage room he could use to escape only if he could break a hole into the wall and exit through a freezer on the other side of the wall. Getting into action, he starts to dig a hole using the toilet tank cover. Successfully, he digs a hole and enters the back of the freezer only to realize that the freezer door was locked. This breaks him completely. He felt helpless and useless and was on the verge of giving up and dying in this hellhole when the phone rang one last time. This time, it was his best friend Robin, who encouraged and comforted him to stand up for himself and fight this nightmare. He guides him to use the phone as a weapon, filling the phone with dirt, packing it tight, giving it some health and practice till he gets his swing right. Finney gets to work whereas Gwen calls the detectives. Max, the grabber's brother, realizes Finney's existence in his basement. When he was about to free Finney, the grabber killed him with an axe. He was about to attack Finney with the same axe, but Finney beat him to it, resulting in him getting injured. A furious grabber follows Finney into another part of the room only to be tripped by the cord set by Finney and fall into the ground that contained the window bars, breaking his ankle. Just like Finney practiced, he swung the phone on his face, resulting in the mask falling down. This scared the grabber as his face was now recognized and he couldn't hide behind the mask. When Finney was about to strangle him dead, the phone rang and the ghosts of all of his victims taunt him before he died of a neck breakage. The grabber's dog that was in the room was distracted by the meat that was in the refrigerator and Finney successfully left the house, as he knew the combinations of the lock. On the other hand, the detectives quickly follow Gwen and enter the house, only to find it empty. They search the place and find the bodies of the grabber's victims in the basement. When Finney came outside from the door opposite the one they were searching for, he and Gwen had a heartfelt sibling moment. Their father reached the scene and apologized for all his wrongdoings. Police realized that the grabber had two houses opposite of each other. One was used when his victim was alive and the other was used to dig and hide the bodies of his past victims. News spread and everybody took a breath of fresh air as the nightmare was over. On returning back to school, Finney was a changed boy. He was now a confident boy. He sits next to his crush in class and asks her to call him Finn.